Hey everybody, welcome back to Tony's Hot Rod Garage. Tonight we're going to put this Holley carburetor back together, but I'm going to show you something else. We got a new addition. This guy, he just showed up the other day. I've looked all over, posted everywhere, can't seem to find his owners. He hadn't got a microchip or anything in him, so he's a pretty cool dog. Been calling him Harley. I think I'm going to keep him. He's going to be the shop mascot. Anyways, let's go ahead and get this carburetor put back together. It's a Holley 4175 vacuum secondary. This carburetor come off my Charger. I rebuilt it about 25 years ago. Car's been sitting for a long time, so didn't want to run right. Decided to go ahead and rebuild it again. We'll get this thing all put back together. We'll get it on the car and fire it up. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put the main body back onto the throttle body assembly. You get your kit, it's going to come with sometimes a bunch of different gaskets. The thing we always want to do is match these things up. With these Holleys, there's sometimes several different ones that could be in the kit. Now our bowl holes, all of our passageways, everything lines up. So go ahead and use this one. See, we set it on the throttle body here. Once again, make sure everything lines up. Get us a couple of screws started. Now we just need to get a couple of holes to line up for us so we can get this thing situated, and then we can run all of our screws in. I usually do a couple corner screws, and that's enough to get started. Over on this side, we got our automatic choke. I'm not doing a very good job keeping this in frame. We got our automatic choke, fast idle cam. Keeps wanting to get in the way, so you just have to be aware of that when we're putting it back together here. There. And just make sure everything's flat, gone together like it should. A couple of screws. I'm going to set it back down. Make sure it operates like it's supposed to. Yep. Looks good. There should be a total of 8 screws. Holds this on. Always want to make sure everything's going in nice and easy. Don't want to cross thread one of these suckers. You got a pain in the butt. This carburetor was built in 1976 and it's still a good unit. Never had any stripped holes. My dad actually bought this thing brand new for a 440 that he had back in the day. So it's been around. As far as I know, he never rebuilt it. He gave it to me back in 1990 when I bought the Charger. And I built it and put it on the car then. And nobody's been in it since. Okay, now the way I like to snug these down, kind of in a crisscross pattern in the middle, and these don't need to be real tight, just enough to seal the gasket. Don't want to pull any threads out and don't want to tear up the screws. Crisscross in the center, and then I'll crisscross the outside perimeter. Total of 8 screws. And there we've got that part of it put back together. Now we can move on. Get the float bowls assembled. I took it apart to clean it, put it in soup, put these little E-clips back on so I don't lose them. Tiny little things. These hold the floats on. Got our new needle and seat assembly. First thing that we want to do, we can go ahead and assemble the gasket onto the seat. Goes. This is one of them side hung bowls, so it screws inside here like so. I believe these are a 1/2 inch. Yep, 1/2 inch wrench. Snug it up. There we go. Drop our needle in. Little wire retainer. I like that. I don't know if you can see that in there or not. Spring. Just sets in there. Come on now. I want to make sure, get a light here so I can show you better. I want to make sure that our little wire retainer here is underneath that tab on the float. So when we lift up the float, you can see that needle draw out of its seat. As far as the float level goes, we're actually looking pretty good. If you look at that, what we want is for that float to be parallel to the top of the bowl. There, let's get you in frame here. This one looks pretty good. If we had to adjust it, we'd adjust it by bending this tang right here on the float itself. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that E-clip. See, what the hell did I do with it? Now here it is. Come on, there we go. Gotta have magic little hands to work on these tiny things. Use a little magnet usually. Get her started on there. You can hold it down and you feel it clip in place when it's on there. See, not quite. There. I don't know if you heard that. You hear it clip when it goes in place. Check our level. Looks good. It's our primary float bowl assembled. We'll go ahead and do the same thing with the other one, the secondary side. Our other seat. It's muggy out here. Got a whole bunch of rain yesterday. It's good. We sure need it out here in this desert. Boy, it made it sticky. Go ahead and snug this one down. Drop our needle in place. Get our float in here. Making sure to get the tang on the needle spring lined up correctly. The spring sitting in its pocket. Now see, if we look at this one, that one don't look so hot. Okay, see how it's not level. This is secondary bowl. So what I need to do is I need to bend that little tab on the float itself, and I'll get in here with a pair of needle nose. We don't want to put pressure on the seat and the needle or it will damage the tip. I'm just going to get in here with these needle nose and pinch that tab on the float just a little bit, maybe. There we go. A little bit more, looks like. I don't know if you guys can see me in here or not with this. Bump the camera and knock you on the floor, that won't be much fun. There. Now we went a little too far, but now it's easy to go back. Just get in here with a screwdriver, put a little bit of pressure on it. I think we got her. more look. Magnet. Pop that little E-clip back in there. Holley's definitely got a few more parts in them than the AFBs do. Edelbrock's, Carter's. Still not difficult to build. Just a few more parts, that's all. Oh, this one just doesn't want to cooperate with me. There. All right. Now we got these little baffles that go over the seat, keeps fuel from spraying around in there. Just like that. Same thing on the secondary side. Just fits right over the needle seat. Stays in there, won't come out. That's all. Alright. Now we can go ahead and alright, where were we? Camera died on me. I'm going to go ahead and put the metering block, set the metering block up here. Okay, this particular Holley uses what's called a metering plate for the secondaries. Doesn't have metering block on both ends like your 4150s, 4160s, and some of these 4165, 4175 spread bores have them too. However, this particular vacuum secondary unit uses metering plate. And it's held on with some special screws. You guys never seen these before. It's called a clutch head. And there's what the bit for it looks like. Anyways, again, we're going to match up our gasket, the old one, put this thing on here. Put it over top of it. Here's what I like to do. See through all the holes, and we don't see any extra holes in this one. And do the same thing here. I can see through all my holes. At the same time, I don't see any blue showing through. I really like these non-stick gaskets because you can take them apart and you don't get this. You can reuse them. So that, let's see if we can do a little bit better here. That guy is going to go like so. We got our gasket. Goes on the metering plate. And we've got sort of a separator plate here that goes on it like so. Now it looks like these little flying bugs are trying to carry me away tonight. It's the downside of working at night. You get all these stinking bugs. And we'll line this guy up. Alright, went ahead and fired up the bug zapper. Maybe that'll get these little bastards out of our hair for a minute and get this carburetor put together. Go ahead and drop our metering plate with its gasket and everything in place. What did I do with all them silly little clutch head screws? Here we are. Go ahead and snug these guys down. And just like the rest of them, just snug. These gaskets, they will swell up a little bit when fuel gets to them. I don't need to go reefing on them and tearing threads up. Remember, these screws have been here since 1976. They still look good. Not all torn up on us. Now for the float bowl. Now this guy, because it doesn't have a metering block, it's got the 4 shorter screws. 2 real short, 2 a little bit longer. Go ahead and put our short ones up top. Wait a minute here. Forgetting the most important part. These Holleys got to have a gasket underneath of that screw. You'll have fuel everywhere. Up a little kit here. Oh, nice. This one came with the nylon gaskets. I love them. They're reusable. The old original paper ones, suckers are only good for one use. You try and tighten them down a second time and they just crumble. There. Gaskets on our screws. Metering plate gasket doubles as a float bowl gasket. Longer ones at the bottom. Shorter ones at the top. Grab me a screwdriver. I always like to use the biggest one that fits. Helps keep you from tearing up screws. I always do them in a crisscross pattern. Make sure we get it down nice and even. We don't want any warped parts. Just snug these screws down. And we got about 3/4 of a Holley carburetor here. This carburetor also does not have the dual feed like a lot of you are used to. Instead, it's got this crossover tube that connects the 2 bowls. So we need to put our O-ring at each end of it, like that. I like to give it a little something, make sure it slides in there nice and easy. This silicone paste works real well for that. Don't need a lot, just don't want to rip that O-ring when we put the bowls together. And that just slides in there real nice like that. Power valve. Gasket for the power valve. Back the metering plate. Now these come in a bunch of different settings and sizes. This car's got a long duration cam in it. Makes vacuum, but not a whole lot, so I can go with 6.5 inch of vacuum. Power valve, it ought to work real well. That's what was in it before. I set it up years ago. It always did me right. Just snug it in there like that. That's it. Another important little piece here. Some of these Holleys, you got to look at yours when you're building it. Now this particular one, this here is the passage for the accelerator pump squirter. It uses this guy here. It connects it right here to the main body. When the pump actuates, it squirts through your squirter in there. Some of them, now they're machined flat. This is flat and it uses a different gasket. It doesn't have that crossover tube. Now the gasket, you'll notice, I don't have one here in front of me. It's got some other ones somewhere, but it's usually flat. Well, it is flat. Right across here, this little hump in it's not there, and there's just a hole for the passage. So this carburetor is going to use this gasket and this crossover piece. We got to put our little O-rings on it so it seals. Pick them guys out of there like that. And if you got a double pumper, you could have the same thing on the secondary side. Little O-rings. A little spot of that silicone paste on there again. I'll go ahead and stick that right in the metering block like that. A little bit of that silicone paste again. Don't worry about this stuff. It'll wash away in the fuel. Ain't gonna hurt a thing. Not enough of it to do anything anyhow. And again, set our gasket onto our metering block. You need to be aware of all the holes in it and make sure everything lines up. One thing I like to do before I put the block on, makes it a little bit easier. These little cork gaskets. See that right there, a little tapered guy. It's for the idle mixture screws. Push that in there. You just put them in dry. Tapered side down. If you look in there, you can see it's knurled. Maybe the camera will focus on that so you can see it. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and run our mixture screws in. Especially on this side. This would be the passenger side of the car, this part of it. Got that choke pull-off diaphragm in a way. I'll go ahead and back it out 1.5 turns. Just like that. Give me a baseline. Do the same thing over here. On the other side, secondaries in this carburetor don't have an idle circuit, so we don't have anything to worry about with that. Bottom it out, not too tight. Half turn out, it'd be good enough to get the car running. And we got our little baffle, keeps fuel from splashing out of the carburetor, goes on there. We'll line up our crossover tube. Set that metering block on there. Just like that. Okay. So, we'll go ahead and get our bowl gasket on here. Make sure everything lines up. And put our baffle on. And we got to line up the fuel crossover tube. Just push her in place. These four are all the same length. Can't really mess that up. Okay, I'm back. Take care of the dogs. The other little dog that we already had doesn't like the new dog. Sometimes you gotta do what we can do to keep them apart. Unless they're together, or we're with them rather. This dog don't seem to have a mean bone in his body, Mr. Harley. But they will defend themselves if they feel threatened. We don't want him to eat the other little shit, because he's kind of cool too. So he gets to hang out with me in here for a minute. Anyways, back to the carburetor. Me just snugging these down, just like the other ones. I'm going to go back and double check the secondary side. Oh yeah. All good. Look at that. Choke's working right. Next thing I need to do, the vacuum secondary diaphragm needs to go on. And on it, we got a little gasket goes in there as well. It's another one of these little O-rings is all. And for this, I'm use a little bit of that silicone paste again, just to make that O-ring stay put for a minute. And there. Up our diaphragm in place. When we tighten these screws down, we'll compress that O-ring and make the seal. Hear the air moving inside the carburetor. We move that diaphragm, means we got us a seal. The guy goes on there. Another one of these little E-clips. Kit actually came with a new one for this one. Go ahead and snap that on there. Maybe. The new one doesn't seem like it fits real good. There we go. That ain't going nowhere. Perfect. Now all we got left is the accelerator pump. This little guy goes in here, and once again, I'm gonna put a little bit of this silicone paste on here just to slick it up. Make sure it pops in there like it should. Lays down flat. There's two different sizes of accelerator pump diaphragms from these Holley carburetors. You look at one's deeper than the other. One's a 50cc and the other's a 30cc, and they're not interchangeable. I suppose if you probably could put the 30 in a 50 spot, and it might work a little bit, but it ain't gonna work real good. The 50 simply isn't gonna fit into the 30. See that gap there? Most of the time, primary side is always the 30. You usually see the 50s on the secondary side on your double pumpers. That just sets in there like that. That spring sets in there. It goes on there like that. Make sure you're... Man, this camera sure don't like this Arizona heat. And it ain't even hot today. Anyways, back to our accelerator pump. Cam lever goes like that. Go ahead and get us a screw started. I can already tell that this ain't adjusted right. Somehow it got knocked out of whack. Show you how to adjust it after we get all 4 of our screws in. Oh, these flying ants, they suck. Draw to the light, fly around behind me, bite me on the back of the leg. Go figure. The dog is afraid of the bug zapper I put on the ground, so I had to turn it off. Oh well. Just makes it more fun, right? Alright, so let me show you here. So with our throttle all the way closed, we want just a little bit of play on that pump arm. And if you see, we haven't got it. You don't want it compressing on that pump at all until you hit that throttle. So what we're going to do is tighten this bolt a little bit. Take 2 3/8 wrenches. Get another one out here. There we go. All we got to do is run this in. This is a lock nut, but we also got that spring on the bolt, so it stays. Okay, let's try this again. Camera to cool off again. The camera was cooling off. I went ahead and backed this off some. What we want is just a little bit of looseness in this, about 10 thousandths. See, now I got a little bit too loose. So we back it off, back that nut back off a little bit until we get it where we want. Try that. And that feels just about right. All we want is just about 10 thousandths right there. And there we hear our pump squirter operating. And that, we throw our vacuum line on here for our choke pull off. Goes just right here, manifold vacuum. That's all there is to it. Now we're ready to put it on the car. And get her dialed in. Alright guys, sorry we had a little bit of technical difficulties trying to film this video, but it all came out in the end. Tomorrow in the morning, we'll go ahead and get the carburetor put on the car and fire it up, and you guys can hear that run. Hope you got something out of that. I did say I'd do a Holley, so here we go. Did a Holley. See you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.